Live from the Accenture Digital Briefing Centre, welcome to the 21st Annual Technology Vision with your host, Marc Corral-Billiard.
Welcome everyone to Accenture Technology Vision 2021 launch event. My name is Marc Corral-Billiard and I'm leading R&D organization for Accenture globally. I'm delighted to have you attending this event today, and I know that in this very special moment we're all living, technology is at the center of the way we live and the way we work. Hence, we had to reinvent our launch event, and we are welcoming you from all over the world using this virtual event. For sure, we would have loved to be face-to-face like we do every year, as we've been launching this technology vision for 21 years now, but that's just the way it is. So thanks again for joining from wherever you are. And I'm looking forward to this exciting agenda that we have for you for the next hour. We have a great agenda ahead of us. Paul already will share the technology with us. Then we will have a panel discussion when we can delve a little bit more on the different technology trends. And then after the panel discussion, we're pretty lucky because we have two clients. We have Yvonne Wassenaar, who's the CEO of Puppet, and we have Filippo Catalano, who is the incoming Chief Information and Digitalization Officer of Reckitt Benckiser, and both of them will share their perspective related to the technology vision. Before I bring Paul on stage, I'd like to give 3 tips on how you're going to be interacting with us during the launch event. First, you're going to see there's going to ask a question submission button that you can leverage to ask your question live. Second, you'll see that there will be also live polling. You can answer polling questions by leveraging the pop-up button, the pop-up window that you'll see on the right side of your screen. And last but not least, we'd like you to continue interacting with us during the event and after the event by sharing your post on social media using hashtag TechVision2021. It is now my pleasure to invite Paul already on stage. Paul is my boss and he's my friend. He's been leading and advising our technology vision for the last 10 years. And Paul is our Chief Technology Officer and lead technology globally within Accenture. So you can imagine that he has pretty good perspective about our technology trends. Over to you, Paul.
With a bang, energy and change came to every part of our universe. Seismic or small, it continues.
Change is all around us, shaped by technology and human ingenuity. We can make it work for you and your business.
Thanks, Marc, and welcome everyone to Technology Vision 2021. You know, this is the 21st year we've been doing the vision, and it's been a remarkably accurate predictor of the important trends that leaders need to follow as you chart your course to the future, and we hope it'll be the same experience for you this year. And one thing that's always important to start with before we get into the vision is the context in the world around us. And wow, do we have a lot to talk about given what's happened over the past year. So let's just stop and reflect on that for a moment. And on the screen, you'll see some of the images just reminding us of what we've experienced in the past year. Not too long ago, it was Brexit that we were talking about. Australian wildfires causing concern and discussion around the warming of the planet. Geopolitical tension, China, US, Iran, North Korea, in new ways, in new forms of conflict. And then boom, COVID hit. Unprecedented disruption, catastrophic health consequences, personal implications, personal real consequences for all of us. But that wasn't all. Systemic social injustice and racism were center stage. Political chasms and tension, new security risks, solar winds and other things causing new concerns and new risks as we think about our businesses. So if you look at all that, it paints a picture of volatility, uncertainty. And as leaders, we need to figure out how to manage our way through that. And that's what we're going to talk about. And I think a key thing to understand as we think about this is the new mindset that's required. And the mindset we need to think about is that we've really, with COVID, what happened is COVID hit the giant fast forward button, and it fast forwarded us into the future at a new pace. 10 years of transformation compressed into 1 or 2 years. We're in the future, but we just haven't caught up yet. And that's really what we're talking about in the vision. How do we catch up? How do we change that mindset? And as you think about catching up, this is a real issue for business. Before COVID, we had done this work around what's happening with digital, and we found that there was a digital achievement gap. The leaders in any given industry with digital who are using technology more effectively, the top 10% of leaders outperformed the rest by a factor of 2x. What happened when the fast forward button got hit during COVID? The gap widened. The top 10% are outperforming by 5 times. And this is a stark reality and a stark realization for many companies, for many leaders, as they think about what do they do next in this new environment. And it's bringing about this moment of truth as you confront this, confront where you are. And you also need to digest what I think are 4 new realities about this future that we need to digest and incorporate as we go forward. So let me walk through these real quickly for you. The first new reality is human experience. Think about what happened. 8 billion people around the world instantaneously changed their behavior. Never before has something like this happened in the history of human civilization. In the US, less than 40% of people pre-COVID did online grocery shopping. Within a couple of months, 80%, more than double, were doing online grocery shopping. 350-fold increase in telehealth visits. And think about the way we're working and communicating with family, friends, colleagues. We're being teamed, Zoomed, WebExed, hung out, depending on the platforms you use. And this is the new mode of interaction. I don't think we've yet appreciated what this really means for human experience, and this is something we all need to deeply understand and reflect in how we go forward. The second new reality is the new reality around technology, and I'll summarize this very simply. Every business is a technology business, and that's something we all need to think about and reflect in how we approach the world going forward. This is true because to be a leader in digital, to address that achievement gap I talked about, you need to be as good at technology as digital natives, as digital giants. Everybody needs to have that technology capability. Every business must be a digital business. Think about what happened in COVID as well. Technology was the lifeline that kept things running, that kept things operating, kept us all connected. If COVID had happened 5 years ago, it would have been far more devastating and had far more severe consequences given the state of technology. And if you think about it then, the role of technology going forward is very different. I use an analogy that many of you may appreciate, a rock concert. The way I think about it is, IT and technology used to be the roadies. They were off the stage, supporting the show behind the scenes. With COVID and now this role of technology going forward, technology really is the star on the stage. It's center stage, and that's something we need to reflect in our businesses as we look at the role of technology and the technologists that we have in the business. You can see this in a number of ways too. Look at, for example, Starbucks and how they handled the COVID crisis compared to their competitors. Looking at this achievement gap, Starbucks immediately introduced some new digital capability, a new app, millions of new application downloads, new capabilities that allowed them to switch quickly to 90% of their orders being remote and then picked up in stores. APIs, microservices, architecture, allowing them to partner quickly with Uber Eats to have new modes of delivery, new modes of service for their customers. So they weathered the storm far better than a lot of competitors. And you can ask, is Starbucks really a technology company or are they a coffee company? In either way you look at it, the technology is key strategically to how they operate going forward. The third new reality is the new reality around work. The good news is we're not going to work from home forever. There's a new reality of hybrid work, something we're very focused on as we look at how the future unfolds. The future of work will be location independent, not work from home, not always work in office, but work designed to be location independent, time independent, asynchronous, data and metadata driven, so we capture information in different ways, hyper automated to bring out the best in people, and human-centric to really enhance the human potential of the employees that we have. And that really is the future of work that we'll talk about more as we go through things. And the fourth new reality may surprise you a little bit. It's sustainability. technology intertwined with sustainability is a key part of the new reality that we all need to incorporate in how we're operating and how we're guiding our businesses going forward. Think about one example, GM. In 1 week recently, GM announced a partnership with Microsoft around cloud and other things. Microsoft invested $2 billion in Cruise. The next week, GM announced that they'll be all electric in their fleet by 2035. Technology and sustainability strategically with the business. And that's why we say sustainability is the new digital going forward. Sustainability together with technology will drive the success and leadership for companies. Okay, so those are 4 new realities. Take a look at these, and I'll ask you to vote on which of these is most important to you or resonates most with you in your business. And we'll pick this a little bit up in some discussion later. So take a look and vote on these. Now we're going to move into the vision. I'll talk about why this context matters so much. So stay with me here, and we'll walk through where the vision's heading. If you look to the past, we've gone through a whole sequence with our vision, starting with every business is a digital business in 2013, which I've talked about a little bit already, debated at the time, but it turned out to be really the guidepost to the future back in 2013. Then in 2016, people first, talking about human potential, human ingenuity combined with technology, and that's been a theme consistent in our vision since then, and again this year. The post-digital era foreshadowed the digital achievement gap that I just talked about a minute ago. And the idea of the tech clash, we saw a lot of conflict coming between tech and people and society, and we talked about this a lot in last year's vision, but we didn't quite anticipate all the turmoil and change that was to come in 2020. But if you look at this then, what's the future now for 2021? Well, let's go to the vision then. So here's the vision. Leaders wanted, masters of change at a moment of truth. Masters of change at a moment of truth. It may take a while to digest this, like every business is a digital business from years ago, but just reflect on this and think about what this means. We're talking about a moment of truth in a few ways. It's a moment of truth because we still have exponential technology change that we need to reflect in our business that's creating new opportunity. And we'll talk about that. We have these new realities that we just talked about that we need to incorporate in how we do business. And we've also got this once in a generation, once in an era opportunity to re-platform our businesses, this re-platforming of global business that's happening around the cloud and AI and everything else that's happening. Now is the time to get this right, or you'll miss the opportunity to be successful. You'll miss the opportunity to optimize your investment. You'll miss the opportunity to be a leader. That's why it's a moment of truth. And along with that, it's a moment of trust, because trust is essential and intrinsic to everything that we're going to talk about in the vision. And if you think back on the new realities that I talked about, they're about trust. Trust with consumers, citizens, communities, stakeholders, workers, employees, et cetera. So let's dive in and take a deeper look. So there's 5 key trends in the vision to think about, 5 key trends that we'll walk through that we believe are the things to pay attention to as you chart your course. I'll walk through each one of them and give you a sense of what it's all about. The first one is called Stack Strategically, Architecting a Better Future. Now, what does this mean? This means that how you do your technology is really important. It's not just about the outcome. How you develop the technology, the architecture, the architects are strategic to your business, which is why we're seeing C-suite and boards care about the technology and how it's done. This is a difference, from the way it used to be. And it's also, a difference in how companies approach technology. One thing that is interesting is to look at how companies are charting that future. Moderna is one great example, and that's relevant given what we're dealing with right now with vaccines and COVID. So Moderna was one of the first to come up with a new vaccine. If you dig under the covers and look at how this happened, they had new science around messenger RNA and new approaches. But they also had a drug design studio powered by the cloud with artificial intelligence, convolutional neural networks, iterating on models, experiments, results, data, paired with scientists who could operate at unprecedented speed to produce a new vaccine quickly. The technology coming together, the stack of the architecture that matters to really chart that course to the future. So as you think about architecting the future, it's about things like the cloud. How do you get to the cloud? And then how do you extend to the edge? It's about data and AI incorporated and supporting your business. It's about the experience layer to capitalize on the new reality that I talked about earlier. And it's about security to make sure you manage the risk. And that's what we mean by stack strategically and the role of this going forward. The second trend is around the mirrored world, the power of massive intelligent digital twins, digital computerized twins that mirror the physical world. And we've talked about this in the vision for a while. What's different? What's different is this is moving from simulation to operations and impact. The analysts forecast that spending on digital twins investment will increase from $3 billion this year to $35 billion, a tenfold increase in just a few years. And that's what we see on the horizon as the twins expand to new elements of business and get networked together to drive greater impact on business. The Port of Rotterdam is using digital twins and networks of them to really transform the shipping experience across multiple companies involved in shipping goods and supplies, and the government agencies involved as well. Or think about Unilever, who's using digital twins in their manufacturing process to save millions of dollars in energy costs, tied to the sustainability new reality that I talked about earlier. Digital twins in retail, digital twins in sports, digital twins in automotive, in security with the cyber twin capability that we've developed. And that's really charting a course to a different way of running the business and driving effectiveness in business going forward. The third trend is called iTechnologist, which is the democratization of technology. If every business is a digital business, then every person needs to know technology and needs to be fluent in technology. In our company, we have a program called TQ, Technology Quotient, for every one of our 500,000 people to better understand technology. And that's going to be important for every company as they drive this future going forward. And it's about different ways of equipping people, new tools, low code, no code to power up people. Things like Honeycode from Amazon, Power Platform from Microsoft, Mendix, Pega, other platforms that can help people, the average person, not the IT professional, develop applications in minutes rather than the old way of doing things. And the CIO's role will change to one of developing the applications to empowering many more people and equipping many more people to power the business with technology. The fourth trend is anywhere, everywhere. Bring your own environment. And notice I didn't say bring your own device. That's a part of this, but it's much broader, looking at how we power people to work in this new way and the role of technology in doing that. This is about creating the new culture of how people work in this environment. It's about securing in new ways. Zero trust security as an example to deal with the risks in this new environment we're working in. And it's also about new modes of working. Think about virtual reality, like you see in the video that you're watching. Virtual reality used in scenarios like onboarding of employees, a way we're using it at Accenture, or virtual reality and augmented reality for remote factory and plant inspections that a person can do for a plant on the other side of the world, from their home or from an office. And that's creating a new future of the way work can happen anywhere, everywhere, and again, with a very different environment and context around it. And then the fifth trend is from me to we, from me to we. And this is about a multi-party systems path through chaos. Now, what does that all mean? The future is about more complex ecosystems. To solve these big problems we face, think about carbon tracking, think about broad health and healthcare systems, think about supply chains, broad circular supply chains. This is going to involve multiple parties working together. And the time for multi-party systems, and by that we mean blockchain, distributed ledgers, and the like, is really here, and it's required, and we're seeing the impact of them. Think about Singapore's digital health passport that has helped them manage the COVID crisis. The Circular Supply Chain Consortium that Accenture is a part of, working with many organizations that to work with everything from the farmer, like you see on the screen, to the end consumer, to track something like a coffee bean from the point of origin to your coffee cup, and having transparency and trust and traceability all the way through the supply chain, which has many benefits from sustainability to more equitably delivering some of the benefits of that entire value chain. So big changes powered by multi-party systems and new ways for organizations to collaborate going forward. Okay, we covered a lot. We went through 5 trends. Leaders wanted, mastering change, moment of truth. Just reflect on this, think about it a little bit more, and think about these 5 trends. Okay, the one more thought to leave you with before we move on to another component of the meeting here. And that, just read the quote on the screen. This is a Chinese proverb that I really like. And if you think about masters of change, read this quote and think about it. When the winds of change blow, some people build walls, others build windmills. We have an exciting future ahead. It's a future of human empowerment and human potential, working with technology in new ways, solving some of the big problems that are intrinsic in the world today. And that'll be done by using an approach of windmills, not walls, and thinking differently as we deal with the new realities. And hopefully the Technology Vision 2021 is providing you with a little bit of a thought starter and a guide so you can help navigate your way and build the windmills that you need in the future. Okay, so thanks for listening, but we're not done, so don't click the close button on your screen yet. Stay with us. You're going to see a question come up on the screen. I'd like you to vote for the top trend that you'd like us to discuss more in the next segment, because we're going to have a panel discussion. We're going to get into this in more detail, because I just skimmed the surface of what's been a year of work by hundreds of people. We're going to get into some more detail. We'll talk about the trends that you guide us to with your votes. And what you'll hear now is a little bit of music, a little bit of an interlude. So listen in, reflect on what we talked about, vote for your trend, and we'll reconfigure ourselves digitally. We'll be back with you in a few seconds.
Paul, that was great. I have to say, I think one of the most surprising takeaways from what you just shared, and maybe for everyone here, is the pronouncement that technologists have moved from the groupies backstage at a rock concert to center stage as rock stars of digital transformation. I didn't see that one coming.
No, it was a lot of fun. It was the first time going through this is always really interesting and exciting. So it's great to have gone through that. Now I look forward to hearing what's on people's minds.
Awesome. Well, hey, let me add my thanks to everyone for joining us here today for our 21st annual Tech Vision. We're going to get in deeply to the trends in this segment. My name is Elise Corneal. I lead marketing and communications for Accenture Technology. You've heard from Mark, you've heard from Paul. Really pleased to bring in Annette Rippert. She's a group chief executive of a strategy and consulting, and she's here with us today to dive in. And in addition to Mark's role, as the lead of tech innovation, he also supervises the research for our Tech Vision. And spoiler alert, he always has a favorite trend that he's going to double down on. So, but let's get into the questions. We have a lot streaming in, so I'm going to try and get through them as quickly as possible, and I'll keep monitoring as we go. So, Paul, the first one is for you, right? We talk about cloud, we talk about AI, we talk about 5G, and even quantum in previous years about how important they are to business. But why didn't they make it as a trend this year? Got a lot of questions. Why aren't they showing up as a trend in the vision?
Yeah, it's a great question. And if you look back, they weren't really primary trends in prior years' visions either. I track every single forecast that comes out in Trend Report. I've got hundreds of them stored away on my PC. I read these continuously, and they all look the same. What's important? It's cloud, it's AI, it's data, et cetera, et cetera. And frankly, I don't think that adds a lot of value to just report out the same list and the same set of trends. So what we're trying to do is get beyond the trends to what you need to do about it. And that's what we've always tried to do in the vision, why it sounds a little bit different. So cloud is a key element throughout the trends. You'll see a lot of artificial intelligence data, virtual reality. You'll see all the same technologies there, but presented in a context that I hope allows everyone to contextualize it more and make better decisions about what you really do with your business.
That's awesome. Okay, another question, and I'm gonna give this one to you, please. So, Stack strategically, as the feedback we're getting is a really interesting trend, and I got a question around that. So, we said that how you develop your technology architecture matters more than ever to business, but can you expand on why, and then maybe give an example of best in class, because a lot of people are dealing with more brittle architectures now, and who's doing that really well, and what are kind of some steps to take?
I think it's really clear about the challenges that our clients have been facing. That's going across every industry. And when we think about what is that really in a practical sense, we see the need to adapt business models. Think of retail having to move to contactless delivery. I mean, Paul, you gave an example of what's going on with Starbucks, or think about how changes have had to be made across distribution, logistics, and supply chain. All of this is also impacted by the fact that the teams that support these organizations are working differently, right? They're working from home, as you were just talking about. So I think one of the things when we think about best in class, our Tech Vision survey surveyed more than 6,200 business and IT executives, and it revealed a couple of really interesting statistics. So when we think about this, 92% of the executives that were surveyed, perhaps you would see this coming, said that their organization is innovating with an urgency and a call to action like never before. So when we think about good examples of what does that mean when we think about stacking strategically, I think of an example about the UK Department for Work and Pensions. So if you think about when the pandemic first hit, they had already prepared by building a series of microservices and the creation of an API library. And so during the pandemic, when all of this need for services started surging, they were able to completely shift gears and identify and quickly scale up critical services. So think about what that is. In record time, they were able to create automated systems for uploading medical records, for getting universal benefit checks situated, for issuing free school meal vouchers for people. I mean, these are real services that needed to be turned up. And we've all heard the circumstances where that didn't work effectively. And this is an example of someone leading. And they were leading in a way that instead of being reactive, their preparation allowed them really to generate what I would consider, technical wealth. And if I think of another example, a great example would be how companies are using the benefits of stacking strategically to accelerate things like product development. So one example would be around AB InBev and Keurig Dr. Pepper, who are working together on a product called DrinkWorks. So it's a collaborative venture between them. And just in 18 months, they launched this new product that's a first of its kind. And it's designed to prepare bar quality cocktails, brews and ciders. And it allows them to really put up a new bar quality beverage that can be served in a way with minimum cleanup, and all of that generating entirely new revenue streams for their businesses, all because they had prepared and better positioned their businesses really to be positioned to reinvent products. And so, I'm sure that it's no surprise to you. So when we think about some of the other statistics that we heard from that survey, 83% of the executives agree that their organization's business and technology strategies are becoming inseparable, even indistinguishable from one another. And so these are just a couple of examples of why I think now it's becoming so important to stack strategically.
And this from our poll turned out to be the top trend that people wanted to hear about. So I'm going to ask a couple follow-on questions that are coming in. One of the questions that's been asked is, a lot of people are dealing with a huge amount of legacy IT. Realistically, how quickly can people replace these?
Well, I think, when we look also at the ability to use new technology, I'll use another example that I think is a top one, which is if we think about Royal Dutch Shell. And they have a goal to become net zero emissions by 2050. So this is a key sustainability goal. And they have a program called ChargeWorks, which is really working on developing and deploying edge intelligence algorithms to optimize energy consumption at the electric vehicle charging stations. So we think about time to implement, they leverage the ecosystem to accelerate their time to implement. So this is a joint effort together with Microsoft, and it aims to develop these AI solutions to support their goals, which would never have been possible before without investments in quantum computing research, and if we think about broadly their ability to be able to support this, it's accelerated because there's teaming. It's because the technology has moved quickly. And so now, like never before, when we think about preparing by stacking strategically, these kinds of initiatives can be brought to market much more quickly.
And I'm pleased that one actually was number one. There's a reason we put it number one, first in the list. So it's good to see that that's what the audience thought as well. The other thing I'd say is on the legacy is it's a real challenge for organizations, and we talk about the technology debt that companies have. I think what we're saying the vision this year is how do you look at these techniques and how do you create technology wealth? Because this is about how you position technology to be the change agent, to master change, as we say in the vision title, and using some of these techniques to create technology wealth to prepare you, better for the future is just, I think, one of the things we need to focus on.
That's awesome. A comment for you, Paul. Someone says, I agree with you, Paul. It's boring to hear the list of all the technologies each year. So kudos to you for doing it a little differently. And Mark, I'm going to turn to you. We've got a few questions here on sustainability, and two parts here. First, we're coming out of a pandemic. We've got legacy IT on one hand that Paul mentioned and Annette talked about. We've got huge workforce challenges, which I want to get to in a minute. Realistically, can businesses, tackle sustainability right now? And then second part of that corollary, what should technology leaders do? What is their role? As Paul talked about rock stars earlier, are they rock stars of sustainability? What's your take?
Yeah, I love the questions. I mean, Elise, and I think that if you think about it, and we've seen companies doing that, I mean, I think like, if you look at all the trends that we have, I mean, one of my favorite ones, probably number two, when we talk about mirror world, all this technology about digital twin, and we're talking about like how we're going to digitalize your world. I mean, being able to digitalize your world, I mean, it's something that you're going to help basically people, I mean, eventually work remotely. And I think that this is the first thing that we can do. I mean, the fact that we've been all locked down, we cannot travel anymore. We need still to go back to the office. How are we going to do that? The fact that we can digitalize basically your office, you can digitalize your plants, you can digitalize your manufacturing environment and everything, it's going to help you basically to get on back to work in some immersive environment, and you'll still be able basically, I mean, to act on the machines and everything. This is typical things that we're going to see. So that's going to reduce obviously carbon footprint. What we also believe, we did a survey that's very interesting when people, when Paul was talking about like how basically there is a digital gap, it's like 5 times, okay, between the laggards and the leaders. What we know also is that if you combine sustainability and technology, then the likelihood that you're going to be a leader in inventing the new future is going to be there. And I think this is something that we're considering very seriously. And we're not the only one, by the way. If you look at Unilever, for example, they have started to digitalize their factory. And so what it means is that they're built basically digital twin of their machines. They collect data through IoT sensors. And with that, they can do like predictive monitoring. They can have like a control center when they can control their machine. I mean, this is also a future, a vision that we have in our lab. So that what we're doing, and I know that Paul's pretty excited about this, is that what we're building is that we're building a digital twin of machines, real machines. And then eventually tomorrow, a worker will use basically his headset, VR headset, something that you see behind basically on my bookshelf. It will wear them, and they will be immersed into a world when they will be sitting in front of the digital twin. And I'm talking about like a virtual world, which is not about visualization only. It's haptic feedback, it's olfactive sensings and everything. And if you get all these senses back to him, he will be able to act on a machine like it would be the real machine. But guess what? That machine will be connected to the real machine using Edge IoT, using exactly what Annette talked about, that stack that we have to put strategically. So you see, all these things is very combined together.
That's awesome, Mark. And we have so many great questions coming in, so I'm going to try and collapse a few. Someone commented, said, great job bringing up the leadership early in this conversation, and leaders are looking for business and technology themes to rally against. I think that is a very important point, and I'm going to use that to bridge to you, Annette. Lots of questions here about culture, right? And I'm going to read a few and just kind of get your broad sense about, what are we looking at future of work and what are those implications? So, one person said, I'm keen to hear from you on Anywhere, Everywhere in this post-COVID world. How do you anticipate the operational teams to work remotely for field engineers? Then also, someone else said, culture is going to be big. How do you, create a culture when we're no longer face-to-face, shoulder-to-shoulder? So what should leaders be thinking about, business and tech leaders, Annette?
Yeah, this is really a very good question. And I think one that we're going to work with for some time, because what's really kind of fundamentally at play is the way we work completely changed. And I think in my conversations with clients, there are a couple of key things that are coming up that are fundamental. We may not, as many technologists on this meeting here, we may not always be thinking about some of the softer sides of this, but this includes a sense of belonging. When you're working together on a team, there's a sense of a shared experience, the common caring for the outcome of what you're working on, but also the well-being of the people that you're working with. And so distance changes those things. It changes them in many ways. That includes, concerns around mental health when we're all on all the time. that becomes a big piece. And so this is something that we've been working on. And so I think putting that idea of the future of the work front and center, really looking at a new mindset of the employee experience and thinking about, here, what role does technology play? Individual's technology plays a big role in how we create that connection. Today, we're connecting with all of you in a way that symbolizes the way that we did connect before, but in a different way. And so technology allows us to create an environment that, helps you stimulate, you feel like it did when we were all together, yet in a different environment. So, we all have moved to a place where we look to retain that connection with employees through virtualization of a work environment. Mark talked about digital twins so that we can start to think about how do we service environments remotely and yet in a safe way, connected to a real environment. And so I think that this is going to really be the next step in every company's future on this work journey. So if I think about, I'm going to give maybe one example, at least to make that come alive. And I'll take, I know I used a similar example, but I'll take NHS Digital. And if we think about that, that's the IT provider supporting the health systems in England. And, at the onset of the pandemic, together with Microsoft and Accenture, we helped to put in place Microsoft Teams for 1.2 million of their staff. But what did this really do? And I think that, when we start to see simulation of the environment, this allowed them to do virtual appointments. It allowed them to have town halls, like an event like this, to keep people feeling connected. It allowed them to communicate with people in isolation rooms so that they could collaborate and yet maintain aspects of safety. And so when we think about the complexities of today's environment and changing environment, by the way, right? Because we see companies who will begin to go back in hybrid modes, ways of working. So, maintaining both the idea of virtual environments sustained alongside a return to work environment will become increasingly important. So, as we think about that, I think it's very important that we think about the cultural aspects of this. Accenture, for example, we onboard a lot of people into our organization. How do you make a new employee feel a part of a new culture and organization when in many cases you've only met them and worked with them in a virtual way? That's a very new challenge for all of us to face.
Yeah, I think I think that's great. And the thing I'd add is the way I think about this is we have like an account balance of social relationships that we have with others. And that account balance was at a certain level, like for each of us individually, like our social relationships, our account balance was at a certain level pre-COVID. And what happens since we're all working virtually is that balance gets depleted because it's harder to maintain those connections, which is why we have to work harder, as you were just saying, to do that. The social bandwidth of building connections is far greater when people are together in person than when they're connected with technology. So our bank accounts are up here. They're being depleted in this way we're working through COVID, and you have to work a lot harder to invest and build that balance back up. And that's why the return to work is going to be so important. And there will be a new normal that's not everybody working remotely, because humans want to be together. There's a powerful bandwidth of social connection when we get people together, and that's that hybrid environment of returning to work that we talk about in the vision, I think is really important for all of us to think about, because that social connectivity and building culture and things, we can do a lot of that virtually, but we always need the bandwidth of the real human to human connection.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to try and I'm going to follow up with you with a question from one of our people in the audience here. It said the pandemic pushed companies' cultures to change so quickly, except the remote work we talked about being more agile. Do you think we will go back to old behaviors once the pandemic is over? And what can we do to make the changes durable and sustainable? So 2 parts, will we go back? How can we keep those changes durable and sustainable? And I'd like to bridge to the other point. We've polled folks and they've said human experience was the one thing, the new reality that most resonated with you. So I think those 2 things are intertwined. Can I get you to comment on that?
Yeah, that was to me, just to, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That bridging is really important. I think the way we think about the future of work and we put all this together is going to be really important, which is why we really highlight that so much in the vision. It's about how do we interact in different ways? How do we use different technologies to connect? We talk a lot about virtual reality and things like that, and that's examples of onboarding that we're doing at Accenture. We're using new technologies to do that kind of work. And I think creating those experiences is important. I think this idea of experience and human experience is really profound because the human experience has changed so dramatically due to COVID. But I don't think any of us, I don't think I understand, I don't think any of us fully understand the changes that have happened in human experience because of COVID. And we'll be looking at that for a long time to come. And that this idea of business of experience that some of our teams at Accenture are working on becomes really important. When you think about the stack strategically, the experience layer of how you create that within organizations becomes important. The anywhere, everywhere of how you work in this new environment becomes really important. And the other thing that's really important that I think we probably want to tie in here, and I think need to tie in here, is this idea of trust. And the trust becomes really important as we think about this as well. How do you create trust in your workforce? How do you create trust amongst your consumers? How do you create trust in the communities you work in as you evolve on this strategy? And that's why you need to take the next step. What becomes really important is back to the sustainability point, and an element of sustainability around thinking about inclusion and an inclusive and diverse approach to how you construct your workforce and how you think about the world going forward. If the future truly is here and we're trying to catch up, you need an inclusive workforce to get you there, because we're building a future. We better have a group building that future that is representative of the people that are embracing, embodying, and living in that future. Which is why inclusion, diversity, and thinking about kind of equality in how you move to this future world is critical. Maybe it's a good time to bring in Kathy to talk a little bit about what we're doing in that area, because it's intrinsically tied into the vision. I think it's really important to think about.
Hey,
So
Paul,
Kathy, maybe you
thanks.
can kind of share some of your thoughts on this topic for us that you've been working on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks, Paul. Just listening to everyone, at the heart of everything, whether it's the future of work, is that human experience. And, and Annette said it, culture, shared experience. We need to, and technology is driving this new reality. And if that technology doesn't take into account, right, the diversity of voices, or the diversity of experience, the diversity of voices to really shape this technology of the future, then we potentially introduce some of the biases that we had in the past. This is our opportunity to truly double down on our commitment to gender parity by 2025, strengthening our relationship with organizations like Girls Who Code to make sure that pipeline of women going to technology careers continues to grow, to continue to invest in initiatives like Project Elevate that really focuses on the retention, recruitment of minority talent, and then externally, continuing to shine a spotlight on Black entrepreneurs, through our Black Founders Development Program. And as I said, we need these voices to shape the future of technology and the technology of the future, so that when we talk about the future, whether it's of work or otherwise, it's truly inclusive. And we not only bring that diversity to innovation, but also really look to address the biases of the past, as well as not introduce that in the future. Back to you, Paul.
I think that's really powerful. The future is inclusion. We're going to need to wrap and head to our next segment. Lots of great questions. I wish we could have gotten them to all, but thank you all for being here. Hang on. Paul is going to take you into the next segment. You'll hear a short musical interlude, and we have two fantastic leaders that Paul is going to speak with in the next segment. So thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy our Tech Vision 2021. Paul, back over to you.
Okay, let's move into another segment here of our discussion on the vision, and I'm so excited to be joined by Yvonne Wassenaar and Filippo Catalano here to talk about the vision and share some other perspectives. So we'll have a little dialogue here, and I'll just give a quick intro, real briefly. Yvonne is the CEO of Puppet, a company that many of you probably know very well. Formerly the CEO of Airware, which was a drone company. CIO of New Relic, and a lot of other great experience in the technology and related industries. And Filippo is the former CIO, global group CIO of Nestle, and will be incoming CIO and also responsible for digitalization at Beckett Renkheiser. So really pleased to have the two of you here, Yvonne and Filippo, and hear your perspectives on the vision. And Yvonne, maybe I'll start with you just to give your perspective. You've listened to the vision, you've heard some of the dialogue around it. You've got a really interesting perspective coming out of the tech industry like you do. What are your takeaways, and what would you share as some of your reflections?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. Thanks for having me here. Excellent dialogue. And all the trends I think make a lot of sense to me. The one that resonates the most, it sounds like it's the same for the folks here, is Stack Strategically, which to me is very closely intertwined with iTechnologist. Stack Strategically is really calling on all of us to push the boundaries and our limiting beliefs of the past. And the pandemic has certainly done that. But to me, what really jumps out is it's critical we don't become blinded by the shiny new toys and come crashing down to the ground. And I think for as much as this time has been a revolution in how we've had to run our businesses and think about, what needs to be done and how we can do things differently and all these exciting new technologies and capabilities, large organizations just can't throw away everything. And you can't fire all your employees, even if you wanted to, and you don't. Like so many of us spend so much time on culture and enrichment. And so the opportunity, I think, is really going to be figuring out, where can you place technology bets? Who can you partner with, both from a technology and a people side, to, in many regards, meet you where you are and take you where you need to be. For example, not every employee needs to know how to build new applications in Kubernetes. But if we're going to do more in cloud native architectures and in the cloud and take advantage of these things, where can you find ways to abstract away to higher level platforms? How can you, think about things like low code, no code? And this is where it blends with iTechnologist. Can you introduce DevSecOps concepts and processes to some of your folks who might be working on mainframes? And I've had the opportunity to see companies successfully do this. And I think this, approach of taking a revolution outside and impact with an evolutionary approach inside is important. And the last thing that I'd say on this is, I feel we're a bit in what I would call the creation economy, where everything's focused on getting net new stuff out into the wild. And I just really put a word of caution that, scalability, security, compliance are going to be important, more important than ever. We've seen this with the Zoom and the Google and the Slack outages, with the SolarWinds breach. Don't get so enticed by these new applications and ways of doing business that you forget the basics. But super exciting.
That's great comments. The creation economy is really, really a great term, actually. And this idea of meeting people where they are, and people in tech. But maybe we'll come back to that in a minute. But great thoughts, Filippo. We've had a lot of conversations on innovation. I've always thought of you as one of the people in the industry really thinking ahead and thinking about how you move the company ahead. What are your thoughts on how the vision and the messages, what resonated, and what's your view on how this all unfolds?
First of all, thanks for having me today. I think the one they are all quite spot on and very, very relevant. I think the iTechnologist, I'm quite passionate about that, because I think this is the democratization of technology, the concept of citizen developers, citizen analysts, citizen innovators within the enterprise is something that is ramping up really strongly. And this is a big challenge also for us as technology leaders in the enterprise. And I think the role for us in this space is going to be really about how do we provide the right frameworks, the right modular capabilities that are safe, that are compliant, that are cyber resilient, they are trustable, they can address the right data layer in the enterprise, but also finding a way to get out of the picture in a way if you're not adding incremental value. And I think culturally, we talked a lot about the people component in the trends. I think culturally this will be one of the things we need all to watch out in our own teams. How do you also know when to move out of the process? Because with the democratization of technology, people can do a lot of things on their own in the right frameworks.
That's a great perspective. And maybe, question right back to you, Filippo, but then I'd like Yvonne's comment on this too, is, with this democratization of technology, which really kind of impacts all the trends, if you think about it, not just the eye technologist. One of the things that, I was just on a call with a group of executives, technology, CIOs and technology executives this morning, and we're talking about this idea of data culture and things like that. How do you, which gets into not just the technologists, empowering technologists, but as you said a little bit in your response there, it's the analysts, it's the business becoming equipped to drive this technology. Maybe talk a little bit about how do you create that culture, not just in technology, but the CIO's role and the technology's role in creating that across the entire company. Yeah.
And I think I will start from the foundations. We should always go back to the foundations of our work, which indeed connect to the concept of how you build the technology stack to allow so. And for me, one of the foundations is really to use implement a data strategy, which is going to be fair. So it's going to be FAIR as an acronym. So it's going to be, the data is going to be findable, it's going to be addressable, it's going to be interoperable within the enterprise, and it's going to be also reusable. I think this is a cultural aspect that needs to advance further in multifunctional in the enterprise as a way to break down some of the silos, some of the collaboration silos. And I think this we have this unique opportunity, this inflection point in the technology history, where we can actually get that happening at a pace that was unthinkable before.
Yeah, no, and Yvonne, you were talking about something similar, I think, when you talked about meeting people where they are. Why don't you, pick up on that?
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in a lot of what we've learned around the concepts of agile and DevOps and now DevSecOps, and the opportunity to expand that across the enterprise in their core principles. And what I mean by that is, I think what has happened over the last many decades, if not centuries, is this, buildup of, there's marketing and there's sales and there's the IT organization and the finance organization. And that's not how the world is going to work effectively going forward. We have to be focused on business outcomes for customers, on small sprints that have, engaged in agile iterative cycles that allow us to bring the best of a company to bear in the interest of driving great customer experience and outcome. And so to me, what I think is really important, and one of the fundamentals of the initial concept of DevOps was breaking down the silos and really thinking about how do you come together in an iterative fashion to drive impact. And for me, when we talk about, technology going from the back office to being the business, and I agree with you, Paul, every company is a technology company. Every person, in some regards needs to benefit from technologists, but they may not be a software engineer, nor do they need to be. They need to have access to the power of that. And I think to what Filippo said, they need to have access to the data. So bringing together powerful teams to drive that impact, I think, is going to be the best path forward.
Well, maybe just to follow up to that, Yvonne, to you, and then get Filippo's view. You mentioned social consciousness earlier, which you were just kind of getting close to with that comment. If you think about this future we're talking about, which I think it's an exciting future of human potential and human empowerment in terms of if we do this right, which I think is within our grasp to do and what we're trying to point out with the vision. But not everybody has equal access to technology. Not everybody in our organizations is equally equipped. Maybe your thoughts on what you meant by social consciousness and how that ties in. And Filippo, would love to get your view on that too.
Yeah, I want to start with why social consciousness matters in tech. And I think it's because at the end of the day, with AI technologies, with technology running all of our lives, we have to understand what the impact is on society around us. We have to think about those things and have a higher degree of social consciousness in the decision-making tables, not just on what we build, but on the impact it has in society. Who do we need to retrain, retool, and so forth. In terms of democratizing technology, I think open source is an incredible way to do that. I think some of these low code, no code opportunities is a great way to do that. I think your comments about, anywhere, everywhere in terms of people just provides so much more access for different folks from diverse backgrounds to participate in interesting ways. So I think there's many different trends that are going to help. And if we all maintain in our positions of powers a focus on driving that change, I think the other elements are coming together to make it really possible.
Great. And Filippo, we've called this segment the final word, and you get the final word. So your thoughts?
No, maybe two comments on my side on the topic. I think the first one is around the fact, and we touched on it earlier, is that there is also this incredible window of opportunity for enterprise technology to contribute at a broader, to have a much bigger impact on things that are really about society and sustainability, and there is no sustainability roadmap achievements without a proper technology roadmap to help out. So I think it's a tall order for all of us also to step up on this topic. And the other topic that is very close to me is I like the concept of tech wealth, so that we can finally move out of the red. But also we need to be, I think, very cognizant from a leadership perspective, that to empower everybody to do what we need to do in this new reality, we need also to put all the possible ethical principles on the forefront. Technology debt is okay, but we cannot have ethical debt in the way we bring technology to the company. It's not something you can pay back later. So I think my perspective is that as technology leaders, we all need to take a strong position on the ethics that come with data, machine learning, and AI.
That's super final comment there, Filippo. So thank you, and thanks, Yvonne and Filippo, to both of you for tuning in and participating and sharing your views. We could go on for a long time with this, but I think that was a great focused set of views on the vision and what really matters. So thanks so much. And with that, we'll turn it back to Mark. So take us home, Mark.
Well, that's it for our launch event. I hope you like it as I did, and you learned a few things along the way as I did myself. Well, thanks again for the questions. I think they were very, very good. And you'll be able to download the Technology Vision report at www.accenture.com/technologyvision. Let's continue the discussion. You can post on social media using #TechVision2021. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank our friends from Touchcast who put this virtual event together. And thanks again from wherever you are for connecting on this launch event. I know you have all a very busy agenda, so we really appreciate you for attending this event. Thank you, and stay safe.